Natasach had 4 hatchlings. One, sadly, never emitted so much as a flutter of a heartbeat and became unwholesome. Natasach solemnly burned it as the others began to tap. The excitement of the trips above ground cut down on the fighting between the males. Traditionally, males fought to the death upon emerging from the eggs, driven by mad instinct, but the 2 adults together managed to keep throats and limbs intact. Once they could be made to understand that the survival of all might depend on an extra set of ears and nostrils, they settled into almost playful enmity. Underground, the 2 males wrestled and bit and yeeked little battle roars at each other, stealing each other's fish and mutton through diversions worthy of their army-smashing great-grandsire, scattering their sisters to corners of the cave, then collapsing into sleep with tiny teeth locked on each other's limbs. More than once, the family gathered for a meal with the smell of the bleeding brothers in the air. Then it was time for wound-licking and lectures. Exhausting business. Above ground, in the overwhelming space of the upper world, Auron was relieved to see that they shrank against each other, tail to tail, and staring from heads frozen in fear. The awe soon faded. The male hatchlings, with the energy and curiosity of their age, lost their fear of the open sky and distant horizons. But for Auron, the trouble had only begun. Their sire had to do a good deal of wrangling to keep them close as he tried to teach them of game trails, grazing, water, and spoor. But their attention was difficult to hold, with big snowfoot hares bounding away at their approach, all bouncing hindquarters and flapping ears. Gently grabbing one scrambling set of shoulder blades with his teeth-covered lips, then prodding the other back in line with his stiff, regrown tail, Auron envied his mate. The females kept tight to their mother's belly and listened attentively. When they acted, they cooperated. His sons dragon-dashed after every bee and showed all the sense of a field mouse. On the 3rd trip, Auron decided it was time for them to learn a real lesson. This time, he went up first to check Zan the tradesdwarf's work before loosing the hatchlings on the world. The chartered company line trader, a grizzled old northerner who might be mistaken for a hairy stump, was on his way north for a season's trapping and skinning. He had chuckled when Auron described what he wanted to fashion, and he'd done a typically thorough dwarf's job in exchange for a bag full of dragon scales sloughed off Natasach over the winter.
"Rather be hunting beasts with mother and sisters," Osirath complained.
"Watch your brother's approach. See, he's keeping downwind from the camp." Auron had to stifle a prum as he watched. Omwalk tested the air around the camp. His slit nostril seemed to wink at Auron as he breathed. Auron watched his son sniff and listen before exposing himself and then zigzagging up to the camp. Omwalk's scale would gleam better if he'd eat the bits of scrap brought by the tradesdwarf with the same enthusiasm that he swallowed the few coins of Auron's bare hoard, but he was cannier than his more enthusiastic brother. Omwalk found the 3 dummies lying in their circle around the stones of a non-existent campfire, oars serving as spears resting over shoulders of burned man furniture and rotting fishnet. Omwalk became overexcited and squeaked out his little roar and charged the nearest. A thunderous barking broke out from the rocks above the camp. Auron spread his wings and glided down to the camp where Omwalk was play-fighting with the wolf. The wolf, a grandson of his old friend Blackheart, named Birchfang, and his sleek mate, dashed in and danced out, nipping at the new drake's flanks, first one dealing with the more dangerous front end, then the other. Omwalk made a gurgling noise, and the wolves yelped and dashed to avoid the coming sputum. The drake vented his frustration and his fireless bladder on some innocent bracken. The air turned sour and sulphurous. "You missed the sentry," Auron said, landing and pointing clumsily with his tail. Its small size and the off-putting step down in flesh from old stump to new tail struck him as ugly, but Natasach didn't seem to mind. Wolf eyes and ears poked around a sharp piece of blue shale. "What did I tell you about your flame?"